All right, let's go to him. Admit. Professor, how are you doing? We're live, by the way. We're live. Give you a heads up right off the bat. How you doing today? You doing all right? Good, good. I'm doing all right. Happy that you're joining me. Let me flip this over so the audience can see what we are seeing. And perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Glad I figured out how to make this work. No, man, I really appreciate you joining me. And just so the audience will know, just in case they don't, I don't know who know you at this point, Professor Mohammed Marandi. He's Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. Professor, I'm not going to keep you long today. I am super interested and curious about your take on what is taking place in Syria and why. And just so, well, I've shown the audience the dramatic explosion of the buildings where they effectively blew up Ministry of Defense and the presidential palace in Syria. Israel has gotten to the point of blocking off southern Syria, effectively telling the military, don't go to the south. The Druze were being massacred. The Syrian army has continued their ethnic cleansing. They've, if not finished with the Alawites, moved from the Alawites, moved to the Druze. Israel got involved using that as a pretext on which to bomb and to invade further into Syria. Give me your take on this. I'm leaving this open so you can start where you want to start with it and we can step into it. But I am curious on how you view this.
Well, first we have to point out that the Israeli regime during the Dirty War, since 2011, we have to remember Jake Sullivan's email to Hillary Clinton on February the 12th, 2012, that Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria.
Yes.
Those who supported this dirty war, they were aligning themselves with the United States and Israel. They have to open up their eyes to reality. And the destruction of Syria was helped the Israeli regime in its conflicts across the region. But just like Erdogan and Qatar and others in the region and NATO, Israel was also supporting ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria.
Yes.
Alongside the occupied Golan, the Syrian Golan. So they don't care about the Druze. If they did, they wouldn't have been supporting ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
Right.
So that's just nonsense. What Al-Qaeda and ISIS have done is that they've pushed the minorities in a corner, and Sunnis. I mean, in Syria and Iraq, Al-Qaeda and ISIS killed more Sunnis than anyone else during the years in which they destroyed so much of these countries. But what Jolani has done is he's pushed the minorities in a direction where some of them foolishly, in the case of in the Druze community, that some of them have tilted, or out of desperation or betrayal, have turned to the Israeli regime. Why? Because they're takfiri. They're supporters in the United States who supported the sanctions on their own people and on those who are Syrian. And those others who supported the sanctions and supported the dirty war and supported NATO and supported this 13 years of Israeli neocon Zionist NATO conspiracy. Those who supported this, they helped create this situation.
Yeah.
It offends them when I say this, but it's a fact. There's no hiding it. They promoted sectarianism and a takfiri group of people that go after, and you're right, they did massacre many Druze. But by the way, there have been massacres against the
Alawites.
carried out by some of the Druze forces that are just as ugly, right? So what the Israeli regime wants to do is it wants to break up, it wants to balkanize Syria. And the best way to balkanize Syria is to bring about a leadership that hates everyone who's not like them.
Yeah.
The most intolerant. In fact, Takfiris are like Zionists. They're just like Zionists. Zionists kill with impunity. They have no respect for other people. They'll murder them. They'll assault them. They'll steal from them. They consider them as subhuman. Takfiris treat people who don't think like they do in a very similar way, almost exactly identical to them.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring in someone to power that will alienate others. That is the best way to balkanize a country. Now, the problem is that, I mean, what the Americans did in this dirty war, and the dirty war was planned before 2011. They've been thinking about this for years. There's evidence of that, and your viewers can go and look this up. And there's some people who've done some really good work on this, Max Blumenthal did a book. Actually, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Matei, they are friends at the Grain Zone. Their views were different from mine at the beginning. They supported the so-called revolution. But after a while, and looking at the situation and doing their research, they came to the conclusion that no, this is not a revolution. This is a dirty war. And their position evolved. And that shows enormous courage, right? Because a lot of people are not going to, you and I both know, a lot of people, once they take a stance, it's very difficult to convince them that they're wrong.
Right.
So Max has a good book. I think it's The Management of Savagery.
Savagery. That's it.
Also, Alistair Crook did a couple of very good articles, but they sort of disappeared from the internet. I was actually looking one of them up a while back, and I couldn't find it. And it was like it was a big hit at the time when it was published.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the best people who can bring about destruction for Syria are the most intolerant people. And that's basically what's going on. Now, others had their own agendas, like Qatar and Turkey and other countries in the Persian Gulf. Back then, Saudi Arabia became a part of this too. Later on, Mohammed bin Salman, when he became he began to run the country, his position changed. He took a different course, and he sort of distanced himself from these Takfiri, Wahhabi, Salafi groups for his own reasons.
Yeah.
But because this really began with Saudi Arabia, and I think to a lesser extent the Emirates, in Afghanistan in the late 1970s, when the Americans wanted to use Afghanistan to create a Vietnam for the Soviet Union.
Right.
And so they began to fund Takfiris. But also the Saudis were doing it to protect themselves against the revolution in Iran, because the revolution in Iran was anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist. It was saying that the Americans should mind their own business. It was anti-Israeli. It was anti-apartheid South Africa. And it had an appeal. So the Saudis and their allies began to export Wahhabism to create hatred towards Shia and Iran so that they could contain this message. So it was both about the Soviet Union, and it was also about Iran back then.
I see.
More recent, so at the beginning of Syria, it was Qatar and Turkey who were very deeply involved, and they were involved in Libya as well. Al-Qaeda and the Al-Qaeda forces were also used in Libya to overthrow Gaddafi.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went to Syria. So the focus was not on Morocco. It was not on, Saudi Arabia. It was not on Jordan. It was on countries that had some problems with the United States and the West.
That's right.
Why? Because Qatar and Erdogan, I when I say Turkey, I mean Erdogan, because Turkey is a huge country,
Yeah.
has different views. It's a very sophisticated country. People there are, it's not Qatar. Qatar is this family dictatorship, which had the fortune to have a lot of wealth underground. And anyway, so first they went to Libya, and then they went to Syria. And then but they were all a part of this NATO apparatus. So they began to, promote these extremist groups, just like what they did in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
Just like it's the same model. The extremists were trained in Pakistan. If you recall, a few weeks ago, during the Pakistan India war, the Sky News reporter lashed out at the Minister of Defense of
Yes.
Pakistan, and he said, we've been doing your dirty work for decades.
Yes.
Which I don't think he meant himself. I think he meant the leaders before him.
Right.
And that was a pretty courageous statement to make, by the way. And it's a fact, because Pakistan was used by the West. And what was the result for Pakistan? It spread. The extremism wasn't just contained to Afghanistan.
Mhm.
Wahhabism, Salafism, and Takfir ideology spread across Pakistan. So the West brought misery to a country which was conservative but moderate. And so the same model was being approached in Turkey. I remember in late 2011, late 2000 or early 2012, but I think it was late 2011. I was in Beirut. I was on sabbatical at that time, and I was working with Alistair Crook.
Where are you?
Alistair Crook. Yeah, I was.
Very good.
We were doing research. We were both. We known each other for quite a few years. Anyway, so he has a think tank called Conflicts Forum. He lost all his funding, by the way, over Syria. But anyway, he at that time, he told me this is a dirty war, late 2011. And I said, how come? How do you know? He says, because all the people who I knew in Afghanistan and in Pakistan who were involved with the dirty war in Afghanistan are now in Istanbul.
Interesting.
He said this to me then.
Yeah.
When the Western media was all denying foreign involvement and all that. Right? Because the Western media is a tool. They're a tool. Just like today, you see what they're doing in Gaza. I think for everyone it's clear that Western media has never had credibility, and it doesn't have it any today. It's
Definitely not on that. No.
It's a tool of empire. So the point is, but why did Qatar and Turkey get involved in this, Erdogan? Because Erdogan had his own ambitions. And Qatar has his own, but Turkey is more important. Erdogan has his own ambitions. He wants to create his own Ottoman Empire, a mini Ottoman Empire. He wants his sphere of influence in Syria. He wants his sphere of influence in Iraq. He wants his sphere of influence in the Caucasus. And for him, Syria is an opportunity. And this is something that your younger viewers don't know, maybe some of your older viewers don't know. Iran didn't have a very close relationship with Syria in 2012. Our cooperation was basically, it was a friendly country, and Syria helped us, we'd help Syria.
Yeah.
But we didn't have much trade. Syria is mostly first of all, it was a place for tourism, but mostly it was for supporting, it gave the opportunity for Iran to support Palestinian groups and the resistance in Lebanon. Turkey under Erdogan was very close to Assad. Erdogan and Assad and their wives would go on vacation together.
Really?
Yes. They'd go on family vacations together. They were that close. And then as soon as Operation
Timber
Sycamore and all that began, he stabbed him in the back. And so, but and if we've seen that during the ever since October the 7th, Erdogan has never stopped sending oil to
Yeah,
Netanyahu.
he's a snake.
He
In
has
fact,
not stopped trade. He didn't stop direct flights. He's never shut down political relations.
no,
He's never shut down embassies.
he just complained.
Yeah, complaints. And so one of the places where they cooperated together was in Syria.
Hmm.
Why? Because Erdogan wants his sphere of influence and the Israelis want their sphere. And this way, the resistance is hit on, stabbed in the back, attacked from the front. And this has been going on not since after the war in Lebanon. This has begun in 2011. If there was no dirty war in Syria, Jamal, do you think that the situation in the region would be what it is today?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. They weakened Syria until it emptied out. A lot of people say, well, they're still arguing why is it that Syria fell? Whatever. The situation was horrible.
Yeah, Trump's
You can
still in the
blame
oil.
the Russians, or you can whatever. It emptied out, right? And then Qatar was able to bribe people and all that. But the point is that if this dirty war did not happen, Israel would never have been able to score any successes. Although I believe that Israel has lost. I believe that Israel has been defeated in this war, in this 21 months.
Explain
I've discussed this before. Well, because even the airstrikes on Syria are not good for Israel. Yes, they make some certain short-term gains. They're trying to divide the country. They're trying to balkanize it. They gain a bigger foothold in the south. But this is all contributing to the delegitimization of the regime across the world. People see images of suddenly this Syria, which is basically on its knees. Turkey has been trying hard to build relations between Turkey. Erdogan, who does nothing for the Palestinians, has not done anything for the Gazans. He wants Syria to be friends with Israel.
Right.
That's what the meetings in Baku were for. Baku, the regime there being an Israeli ally. That's what the meetings in the Emirates were for, and the other the whole project. And Jolani kept sending wonderful messages to the Israeli regime that our only enemies are the same as yours, Hezbollah and Iran. And so this Jolani, who is basically doing whatever the Israelis want and meeting them,
yes,
and betraying the resistance and the Palestinians and Syria, what do? They go and bomb the president's office and the Ministry of Defense in front of the world. That is not going to end. That is not going to make things better for Israel. And I think personally, I think all of these crimes committed by the regime, especially, of course, the ongoing Holocaust in Gaza. Jamal, you know the United States better than I.
Yeah.
And I'm putting this question to you. This whole issue of Jeffrey Epstein, right? That's blown up today. If we didn't have 21 months of genocide in Gaza and all the events that we've seen in this region, would it have blown up across the United States the way it did?
Yeah, it would have.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? It's the way Trump handled it. I mean, for one,
well, that's true, but I don't think it would have been that bad, because part of it is.
Oh, I see what you mean.
People are saying that this pedophile,
Israeli
this
intelligence
monster, is working with Israeli intelligence. True, and is a bad guy and all that, and they're controlling her. But Israeli intelligence today, in the eyes of most Americans, is far more sinister than it was 20.
I see your point. You mean they've been so damaged that people associated with them, and yeah.
In other words, they're saying with Israel, 22 months ago, they would say, well, that's horrible. That's right. Why is Israel doing that? And this is, there must be some rogue actors within the intelligence community, and or it would be horrible. And of course, the way Trump handled it, I agree. It was like the most, both when he spoke at the cabinet meeting and then his Truth Social posts, and it's like he intentionally was trying to destroy himself. I agree completely, but the Israeli aspect to it, the connotation for the word Mossad today across the world, but in the United States as well, is very different from the connotation that it had 22 months ago.
Most moral military is what they used to call it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today, I think that the Israeli regime, every act makes it only look more ugly. And the bombing of Damascus was outrageous.
It was.
You saw this woman presenter on TV, and suddenly the building behind her is just blowing up. And then what did Syria do? They were basically on their knees. They were looking to kiss the ring. And then you go and slaughter people like that? So this, I don't think, is going to end well for Israel. And Jamal, I mean, I don't mean to say I'm good at predictions or anything like that. But when Syria fell, I think we talked about this.
Yes, we did.
I said that this was a tactical victory for the coalition, Netanyahu, Biden, and Erdogan. But I also, and it's tactical defeat for Iran, Russia, and the resistance. Of course, Russia is not in the axis of resistance, but it was a tactical defeat. But I said in the long run, this is going to harm Turkey and this coalition that brought this regime to power more than anyone else, because it's going to be a black hole. What the Israeli regime is doing is that they are creating a black hole, and it's not going to end well for the regime.
It's not just Israel.
And
the U.S.
It's created greater hatred for Israel. And by the way, it even impacts Iran. It impacts Lebanon. Today in Lebanon, right now, the mood in Lebanon, and I've spoken to some of my Lebanese friends and colleagues, the mood in Lebanon today about Hezbollah is evolved among many of its critics.
Mm-hmm.
The Druze critics of Hezbollah are now saying the resistance needs weapons, because they're looking at what's happening in southern Syria.
Right.
And again, I don't. I think those people in southern Syria who turn to the Israelis and are close to the Israelis, they should be condemned outright. They're traitors to the country, and they're allies with genocidal monsters. And those who've carried out atrocities against the non-Druze population, they are just as criminal as ISIS and Al-Qaeda criminals who are carrying out atrocities against the Druze.
Yes.
That aside. But in Lebanon, many people are now saying, without the resistance arms, where are we going to be tomorrow?
Right.
With these Zionists and these Takfiris, which are both the same. They're the same. It's just that the Zionists are the ones who are in charge, and the Takfiris are subordinate. The second is in Iran. I don't get deeply involved in Iranian politics. I don't talk about internal Iranian politics because I don't see it as very useful. Mm-hmm. And often I see a lot of Iranians who speak about Iranian politics are not necessarily always very well informed. And I don't pretend to be an expert on Iranian politics either. Iran is a very complex society.
Yes.
And it is, and it's in a very complicated part of the world. But ever since the fall of Syria and the rise of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, Iranians don't like Al-Qaeda and ISIS because they know if they come to Iran, they'll cut off the heads of Iranians.
Yes.
That's their takfiri. That's what they do. But they said that, look, they cut a deal with the United States and they got all their sanctions lifted.
Yes.
So you can do a deal. Well, what Israel did is that they showed the world, can't do a deal with the United States. You can never trust the United States. You can never trust Israel. You can kiss the ring. It doesn't mean you're safe. This has changed the mood in Iran even further. The 12-day imposed war had a huge huge effect. It created a huge sea change in Iranian popular opinion, which we discussed earlier before.
Right.
This added to that, and people have been saying in online discussions and debates and elsewhere that then they kissed the ring. They went and spoke in Baku with Turkey facilitating.
Mhm.
And we have to always remember those people who keep saying that Mr. Erdogan supports the Palestinian people. Qatar's. I mean, if the United States tells Qatar to shut down Al Jazeera, do you think they'll keep it running? They'll shut it down in 10 minutes. They'll just say, wait for us to pull the plug. People shouldn't be so naive. But some people they've been so much propaganda over the years, not just from these mainstream media outlets, but these oil-enriched dictatorships. They have a huge network of, let's call them, cultural centers across the world. They have all sorts of TV channels and media that they fund. They don't necessarily own, but they fund them.
Right.
So they have this huge network across the world. The ISIS people and the Al Qaeda people who went to Syria in 2011, 12, 13, 14, where did they come from? Many of them were recruited in these places across the world, many in Europe.
Yes.
So they would go from their countries to Istanbul, some to Amman, but mostly to Istanbul, and then enter Syria. And in fact, Iran wasn't even involved in Syria, nor was Hezbollah until the summer of 2013, after tens of thousands of foreign fighters had already been sent into Syria, and Turkish intelligence murdered Syrian regime.
Yes.
It was exposing this. So, but in any case, the point I'm making is that Erdogan and Israel are working sort of like in parallel.
Yes.
Israel wants to expand. He also wants to expand he wants to create this mini Ottoman Empire. But there are points where there's tension. And the tension between them is in Syria.
Both want it. Yeah.
Both want it, but Erdogan is never going to stand up to Israel. And he did nothing during the last 2 days. He's done nothing for the Palestinians. He can only, anyway. So right now we have a very complex situation, but I think it's not working well for any of those people who brought about the demise of the Syrian government.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as I said to you, and as I've said for years, I'm no fan of the Ba'athist Party. Saddam Hussein had his own Ba'athist Party.
Mm-hmm.
We know Iran is own. And, they say Iran, like these people who antagonize Iran, say he was an Alawite, so Iran supported him. Not at all. The Aliyev is a Shia in Azerbaijan. Iran doesn't support him. He's an Israeli ally.
Yeah.
But there are two countries in the world that Iran helped save, or at least helped save one, and the other one Iran is fighting for. One was Bosnia, the only country to support the Bosnians. The only country to support the Bosnians militarily was Iran. Bosnia was a Sunni country.
Mm-hmm.
And the only entity that the Iranians today are supporting, the only country that's supporting the Palestinians today is Iran and, of course, Yemen.
Right.
So this narrative that Iran supports him because it has nothing, he's not, I don't think he's even, I never met him. I don't think Assad was like particularly religious or the people around him were religious in any way. That wasn't the point. The point was that the Israeli regime was trying to undermine Syria. This was a conspiracy by the West, and stupid people, foolish people, or complicit people, they joined this conspiracy. And they, you can't be in a joint operation between the Israelis and the Americans for 13 years and expect not to be helping them.
Professor, great breakdown. You're right, it's complicated. And I didn't even think of the other part of he did everything in his power to associate himself with Israel and got bombed anyway. Professor Marandi, excellent breakdown. Thank you for this. Professor Marandi, he is Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. Professor, you stay safe. And again, you have my appreciation for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal.
You have
Great seeing you.
Bye-bye. All right. Great breakdown by the professor. There we are. Great breakdown by Professor